Okay, good morning to all of you guys. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to everyone online as well. Today is our second day of the Harmony and Relationships course. And what I'm going to be doing is teaching you loving kindness meditation. Then we're going to do loving kindness meditation together. Then afterwards, we'll take a break. I'm going to teach you guys identifying your cravings and analysis of the mind, helping you understand how to go in and surgically remove your cravings, desires, attachments. Then we'll see where we're at. We have a lunch break scheduled, and then afterwards we have this topic of cultivating healthy mental states, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. But sometimes, depending on where we're at, we can actually do that afternoon session before lunch, and then we can actually finish right before lunch and the whole rest of the day to ourselves. So we'll see what happens by the time we get to that point. We'll kind of check in and see how it goes. So let me share with you guys this topic of loving kindness meditation, because as we were talking yesterday with the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires, this is what's going to transform your mind away from the anger, hatred, ill will, and all those lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have the slightest dislike towards other people. This is happening through, yes, eliminating craving, desire, attachments, using breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity, but you are going to need to go in and break up this anger, hatred, ill will, and all those lesser versions with something like loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to the elimination of anger. That's one aspect of it, but you need to go out into the world and practice through your intention, speech, and actions, like you saw in the Eightfold Path, being loving and kind to all beings around you. So I'm going to share with you guys this topic of loving kindness meditation. Meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So here what I've done is I've put together a diagram or a chart or just some content here to help you see with each of the 2 meditations you're learning in this course, what is the unwholesome quality that you're eliminating and what are the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating in the mind. This is the goal, or this is the why behind the meditation. So we're doing breathing mindfulness meditation because it's eliminating that unwholesome quality of craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's holding on, wanting things to be permanent, so that when the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off and letting that go, training your mind to internally let go, because that's what the mind doesn't want to do. It doesn't know how to do that because of its craving and clinging. And then you're cultivating the wholesome qualities of mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration by focusing on the breath. Whenever the mind moves off the breath, you're aware of that. That's the mindfulness. And then when you bring your mind back to the breath, you've let go, and now you're focusing and developing concentration. So if you lack concentration, this is a perfect meditation for you. And then practicing in daily life, singleness of mind and focusing on the day-to-day task that you're doing, not allowing the mind to wander around, cutting that off and letting it go. Then as you're developing your meditation practice of breathing mindfulness meditation, which oftentimes students will take several weeks to just work on breathing mindfulness meditation and build that up, maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, get a really good, consistent practice of breathing mindfulness meditation, then you would like to bring in the loving kindness meditation. What this is going to do for you is eliminate that anger, hatred, and ill will and all the lesser versions, like frustration, irritation, annoyance, even the resentment and the hostility and the animosity. If you have negative self-talk in your mind where you're hateful towards this being, sometimes people have degrading and diminishing talk and the inner dialogue where you're degrading yourself. This meditation is good for that too, because if you're looking at other beings and thinking of negative ways and having ill will towards them, you probably have that towards yourself too. So you can transform that so you can get to the point where you don't have that going on in your own mind anymore. So you're going to be able to eliminate this anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions. And what you're cultivating is loving kindness for all beings. What loving kindness is its active goodwill towards all beings without judgment. This is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. When we say active goodwill towards all beings without judgment, what that means is you're not judging other people to determine whether or not they deserve your loving kindness or not. That's not loving kindness. What you would like to do is get to the point where you can practice loving kindness with everybody and anybody, that you're not trying to determine whether they deserve your loving kindness, but you can just be loving and kind with everybody in the world. When the Buddha talks about this, he talks about enveloping the mind with loving kindness. So some people refer to this as metta. If you hear the Pali word, that's what the word is. But I use all English when I'm teaching, so that I use this word loving kindness. But you might hear some people refer to it as metta. Okay, so this is what you're cultivating in the mind. What loving kindness is it's the antidote or the wholesome root or the remedy for anger, hatred, and ill will. It's the exact opposite of anger, hatred, and ill will. It's going to help you to eliminate the harshness, bitterness, hostility, and resentment. Because as that's coming up in the mind, if you can knock that down and cut that off and let it go and bring in this loving kindness, that's what's going to transform your mind. You essentially rewire the mind where it can no longer experience these discontent feelings and these aspects of harshness, bitterness, and hostility. You can get to the point where it's physically impossible for your mind to experience that. By the time you get to enlightenment, it'll be physically impossible for you to experience anger. It's just not possible. The mind won't do it. Even if you try to do it, the mind won't even do it. So that comes through cultivating loving kindness in the mind and practicing it in your day-to-day life. This is one of the Brahma Viharas. We're going to talk about these today, where you can learn about the Brahma Viharas. This is part of chapter 14 in the first book. You'll be able to see that. So loving kindness plugs into the Eightfold Path. As I mentioned to you, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else kind of plugs into. So your loving kindness that you're cultivating plugs into the Eightfold Path. And I'm showing you here in the words of the Buddha where that is. Here under right intention, if you remember, the Buddha was talking about the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. That non-ill will, that is goodwill. So what he's saying is cultivate the thinking or the thought or the intention of having goodwill towards all beings. But how could you do that if you didn't have a tool or a technique to be able to accomplish it? So that's where loving kindness meditation comes in, is it's helping you to accomplish cultivating the mind to be loving and kind in all situations. Then if you remember right speech, when we were talking about the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, the 5th aspect of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech is to speak with a mind of loving kindness. Again, how could you do that if you didn't have right intention and you didn't have a technique to cultivate the thinking or the thoughts of loving kindness? Because your speech is going to emanate from your thoughts and your ideas in your own mind. The condition of your mind, that's how you're going to speak. So if you can cultivate the mind to be loving and kind, this is what's going to come through in your speech. Right now, you might have to really work at being loving and kind in certain situations. And that's part of the process of getting your loving kindness to permeate in the mind more and more. But over time, as you fully transform your mind, it won't be such effort to be loving and kind to all beings because you fully transform your mind. But on the way to that, yeah, it can be a real effort to be able to practice this loving kindness. But as you have this loving kindness in the mind through cultivating it with the meditation, then you'll actually be able to speak with a mind of loving kindness. Here's a teaching from the Buddha where he was talking to his students and he was reminding them prior to this, he was reminding them of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And he was reminding them that even though you're speaking this way, that other people are going to speak to you occasionally with the improper time. They're going to speak falsehoods. They're going to speak with harsh speech. They're going to speak unbeneficially, and they're going to speak with a mind of inner hate. And he says, when you experience this, when people are speaking to you in these ways, he says, herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected, and we shall utter no evil words. We shall reside compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. we shall reside enveloping that person with a mind filled with loving kindness. And starting with him, we shall reside enveloping the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, abundant, joyful, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train, monks. So here he's explaining that even though other people are bitter, harsh, and hostile, you should reside with this loving kindness, because it doesn't help you when other people are bitter, harsh, and hostile for you to be bitter, harsh, and hostile right back. That's the fireworks that I was talking about yesterday with my mom, that when my mom would be bitter, harsh, and hostile, I'd be bitter, harsh, and hostile right back. And we had fireworks going off. The way that you eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will in your life is to eliminate it from your own mind. So if someone else is being bitter, harsh, and hostile with you, you would like to not do that back. You would like to probably just walk away. No reason to even stand there. Just walk away from it. No need to be bitter, harsh, and hostile back. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you here, is to reside with this loving kindness, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Because when someone else is angry and bitter and harsh and disrespectful, that's their own mind causing that. That's not you. That's their mind that's choosing to do that. Sometimes you might think that it's you that's causing that. But if you understand the Four Noble Truths, you understand that they are making the decision to be angry and frustrated. It's their own craving, desire, attachment. And because it's their anger, there's nothing you can do to fix it. Sometimes when you see someone angry, you feel like you need to fix them. You need to say something to them to stop them from being angry. But because you're not causing their anger, you can't stop them from being angry. They have to choose to let go of whatever their craving is, whatever their clinging is. They have to choose to let that go out of their mind. That's what's going to eliminate their anger. And you can't do that for them. So that's why when someone's bitter and harsh and hostile and having animosity, it's unwise to sit there and continue to have conversation. That's why the Buddha teaches about the proper time, that if their mind isn't prepared, if their mind isn't calm and peaceful and joyful, no need to sit there and have a conversation, because you can't fix this person. They have to choose to be calm themselves. You can't make them to be calm. So here the Buddha is saying, reside with loving kindness towards that person, right? And how could you do that, again, if you didn't have a technique to be able to do that? Here's some more words from the Buddha about loving kindness and loving kindness meditation. This first one, he's teaching his son. Sometimes people think that the Buddha left his family and he never came back, but this is actually untrue. The Buddha left for 6 years, but then he came back, and his son, his wife, his stepmother, essentially, because his real mother died when he was 7 days old, his cousins and brother-in-laws and people like this, they all came back to be able to ordain with him. So here he's teaching his son. He's saying, Rahula, develop meditation on loving kindness. For when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. This is the way a Buddha speaks. Very clear, very concise, very precise. You don't have to interpret his words. You don't have to figure out what he's saying. He's just explaining it to you straight, that this is what it took for him to be able to get to the elimination of anger, hatred, and ill will, and all those lesser versions. And he's explaining it to his son. Hey, develop meditation on loving kindness. When you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. Very clear, very straightforward. And then here's another one. He says, loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is the practice of day-to-day loving kindness in your day-to-day life. The first one is talking about meditation. The second one is talking about your day-to-day intentions, your speech, and your actions. And you can see that through the Eightfold Path, that the Buddha has embedded in the Eightfold Path this practice of loving kindness. Not only in right intention and right speech, but if you look at right action, choosing not to kill, not to steal, not to have sexual misconduct, not to cause harm with our body, that's an act of loving kindness too. The same thing is if we choose a right livelihood where we're not causing harm to others through the way we choose to sustain our life, this is an act of loving kindness too. So loving kindness is embedded into all the teachings of the Buddha, because as you have that genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and that's what you're putting out, that's what will come back to you in your day-to-day life. Here the Buddha is teaching his students During the lifetime of the Buddha, you might think that he was the only one teaching, because if a Buddha existed during your lifetime, you probably would be interested in learning with that person. But unfortunately, there's no outward characteristic that determines who is a Buddha and who isn't a Buddha. So it's not like there's like a mole on a special spot on the forehead, or there's like a turned ear, and everybody knows that this person's a Buddha. So some people knew that he was a Buddha during his lifetime, but other people didn't. So there were other people who were teaching, not only him, but other people were teaching too. And those people were claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. And the people who were studying with those teachers and the people who were studying with the Buddha, they would sometimes get together and they would kind of share thoughts. Just like you guys probably go out in the town and you probably meet people who are studying. You might share what you're learning from your teacher. They might share what they're learning from their teachers. And the Buddha here is talking to his students and saying, suppose they should ask, meaning suppose those other students from other teachers should ask. But what, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned? You should answer, the liberation of mind by loving kindness. For one who attends carefully to the liberation of mind by loving kindness, unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. This, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. So what unarisen anger is that deeply rooted container, that mental object that we were talking about yesterday of ill will, that's deeply rooted in the unenlightened mind. Like right now, you're not angry, you're not frustrated. But if one of your cravings get triggered, that anger, that ill will arise in your mind. And now your intentions, your speech, and your actions will become bitter and harsh and hostile. So there's unarisen anger in the unenlightened mind. But what the meditation of loving kindness is doing is it's breaking that up almost like a jackhammer and getting it out of the mind so that it'll get to the point where it's physically impossible for you to be angry or frustrated or any of those other discontent feelings related to this ill will and this anger and hatred. So the way to ensure that this unarisen anger doesn't arise is practicing loving kindness. And then when anger has arisen, so an arisen anger, this is abandoned through loving kindness. So if you're noticing that you're in a conversation and you're noticing some anger arising up, you would like to bring into the mind the loving kindness. That's where your mindfulness that we talked about yesterday comes in, that you're aware that this anger is arising. And then that's where the right effort comes in, that you cut off and let go of that anger. And now you apply the effort to bring in the loving kindness. So we're eliminating the unwholesome quality, and then we're arising the wholesome quality. That's right mindfulness and right effort working together. Okay, so this is the Buddha teaching his students that it's loving kindness that is going to work to eliminate this anger, hatred, and ill will. Do you guys have any questions on any of this? No? Let me check online here. Okay, so I'm about to teach you guys loving kindness meditation, but one of the things that I'll share with you guys is sometimes what we do in the unenlightened state is when something happens and their anger is arising, we think that other people are causing us to be angry. And now we become bitter, harsh, and hostile, like I was talking about yesterday, where we push people away. We're bitter, harsh, and hostile through our intention, speech, and actions, or we put our expectations on people. And now when that anger is arising, and say we've pushed this person away, we might be holding a grudge against this person, right? We might think that by holding on to our anger, it's like getting back at the other person. This is the lack of wisdom that the unenlightened mind has. It thinks that somehow by me holding on to this anger and this bitterness, I'm getting back at that other person, even though I'm not going to see that person ever. This is kind of like holding on to a hot coal and trying to burn somebody else. The only person getting burned is you, because you're holding on to that anger, that hatred, that frustration, that resentment, that animosity, that bitterness. And what you would like to do is you'd like to clear this out of your mind, realizing that that anger is coming from your own mind. It's not coming from the other person. And when you can clear this out of your mind, you can get liberated, you can get free. It doesn't mean that the other person hasn't done something that is unwise. They could have done something that is unwise, but they're not actually causing the anger and the hatred or the ill will or any of those lesser versions in your mind. So by you clearing this out of your mind, you can get to the point where your mind is liberated. That's what the Buddha is talking about here, this liberation. What liberation is freedom, where you can get freedom from your anger. Because it's a real burden to carry that around, to carry a grudge around. It's going to weigh on your shoulders. It's going to weigh you down. It's going to exhaust you. By the end of your day, you'll feel exhausted, right? So by you getting free of this anger, it's letting go of this hot coal so that you're not continuing to get burned over and over and over again. So there's this meditation that's going to help you to be able to do this. And we're going to do it here in a moment after I teach it to you. The way this meditation works is we start with the chanting to ease into the meditation, just like all the other meditations. This is going to help promote a mindfulness or awareness of mind in the mind. It's going to help get awareness of the breath, ease the mind in the meditation, and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Then we do some breathing mindfulness meditation just for a few minutes, just to kind of get focused on the breath, kind of get the mind focused on the breath, starting to cut off and let go just for like 3 to 5 minutes, focusing on the breath. Then I'm going to come in with some affirmations that are going to be the loving kindness meditation. You're going to hear me saying these out loud. And when I say these affirmations out loud, you would like to repeat these in your own mind on the out breath, right? So what you're going to hear me say are things like, may I be peaceful. So when you get to your out breath, you repeat inside your mind, may I be peaceful. Then you're going to hear me say, may I be safe. And that's what you repeat inside your own mind. May I be safe on the out breath. Then you're going to hear me say, may I be well. Again, on the out breath, you repeat that in your own mind. Then may I be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. You repeat that in your mind. Then we're going to make these rings. We're going to make about 6 different rings. You would like to customize this meditation to be 6 or 8 different rings. I'm going to do rings that are applicable to all of us. So you're going to hear me saying certain phrases like, may mom and dad be peaceful, safe, well, free of discontentedness. May my friends and family and neighbors and coworkers, people like this. I'm going to be using general statements that apply to all of us. You can use a person, you can use a group of people, but eventually as you go through all these rings, you would like to get to the last ring where it's all beings. Okay, this is just a visual aid here. I'm not actually going to do just these 3. I'm going to do about 5 or 6. You're going to hear me do these rings. And now you would like to start with I, and then you would like to finish with all beings. So usually you start with I, and then you do like a ring or 2 of people that you currently have loving kindness for. Then you do a ring or 2 of people you're more neutral about. You don't hate them, but you don't necessarily love them either. Maybe like a neighbor or a coworker. Then you go to a ring or 2 of people you do have anger and hatred towards. And then eventually you get to all beings. And this is what's going to transform your mind. And while I'm doing these general statements, you would like to customize this for you. So if you have a person named Bob or Barbara or Rebecca or Susie or something like this in your life, or maybe they're long in the past, maybe they're even dead, maybe it's someone that you'll never ever see again in your life, but your mind is holding on to the anger, you would like to, when you do this on your own, customize this and put them into your meditation, where it's instead of may my friends be peaceful, it would be may Bob be peaceful, may Bob be safe. May Bob be well. May Bob be free of discontentedness and the suffering it causes. This is going to be the rewiring of the mind and help you to let go of your anger, hatred, and ill will. This meditation isn't changing other people. You're not sending out loving kindness and trying to change mom and dad. You can't change other people through your meditation. It's not possible. What you're doing is you're transforming your mind so that now you have more thoughts of peace and joy and this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well towards these other beings, so that now when you're around those beings, you can be more loving and more kind. So like you guys heard yesterday, I had a lot of resentment built up in my mind towards my mom for things that happened in my childhood. So when I started doing this, I would do this with mom. I would do it with mom in the affirmations, right? So it was, may I be peaceful, safe, well, free of discontentedness. And I actually used to do myself more than one time because I had a lot of negative self-talk within my own mind. So I would do myself like 2 or 3 rings for myself. Then I would do 2 or 3 rings for mom. And then I would do, may all beings be free. And I did this over a period of time, and I gradually wore away the anger, hatred, and ill will, so that now when mom was being bitter, harsh, and hostile with me, I could be loving and kind back. By my mind having more love and kindness towards mom, now my intention, speech, and actions changed. And now when my intention, speech, and actions changed in this relationship, that's what changed our relationship, because I was being loving and kind in the relationship. And this is where it starts, is with the loving kindness meditation. So it's kind of like me and mom had this log jam, and I had to pull out the log of anger and resentment and judgment and hostility and animosity, and I had to pull those logs out so things could flow in our life more. So this meditation is what's going to help you to be able to transform your mind and get to the point where you have nothing but loving kindness for all beings. So if you have hatred towards politicians or lawyers or police officers or any group of people, you can actually do groups of people here too. You can say, may all police officers be peaceful. Right? So whatever's going on in your own mind, this is where your mindfulness comes in. That's why you need to learn breathing mindfulness meditation first and develop that, because you need this awareness of mind to understand what is it that's in your mind. Who are the individuals? Who are the groups of people that you have hatred towards? And now you would like to include them in your meditation. And then this is a type of meditation that's going to change over time. You might have it set up in a certain way, and now you actually do that for several weeks. But then as you start noticing your mind transforming, you might actually need to move certain people out or certain groups of people out and move other people in. When I first started doing this, I was in business. I was a business person. So there were times where like maybe a customer or an employee and I had a certain interaction and I got angry or frustrated. And those people showed up in my meditation for a period of time. Or maybe I was on my way to work and somebody cut me off in traffic and I noticed anger coming up. And I would, maybe for a few days, may that person who cut me off in traffic be peaceful, right? You can do that in your mind so that way you don't hold on to that anger. There was a time where we had this one facility that there was a landlord and he came in and got up in my face in front of my employees and my customers, and he was yelling and hollering at me, told me that he was going to kill me in front of my employees and my customers. He went in my meditation for a little while, right? So you would like to be sure that you're moving these people in that you might potentially have anger towards. I wasn't quite sure whether I had anger towards this individual, so I put him in the meditation for a little while. And what you're going to notice is gradually, slowly but surely, you're going to wear away your anger, hatred, and ill will. The Buddha gives a great analogy on this. He talks about this digging tool with a wooden handle. If you were digging with this wooden handle every single day, you're going to be wearing away the wood on this handle each day. But you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away from the handle each day. But when this handle is completely exhausted and you need to replace it, you're going to know that. So you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away from the handle each day, but when it's time to be replaced and it's completely exhausted, you'll know that. And the same thing is true about the anger, hatred, and ill will when you're doing loving kindness meditation and loving kindness, that you're not going to know how much anger and hatred and ill will you're wearing away each day, but when it's completely gone, you're going to know that. So each day when I was meditating and I was including my mom in the meditation, I didn't know how much anger I was wearing away. But when it was completely gone, I knew that because it was 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I hadn't been angry at mom at all. So I knew that the anger was gone. But each day, I didn't know how much of it was being worn away. So you're going to need to have confidence in these teachings. You're going to need to be dedicated and determined to be able to consistently meditate in this way, not fully knowing how much anger you're wearing away each day. But just know that you are wearing it away. And then when it's completely gone, you'll know that. So it's the meditation that's working to transform your mind. And then you go out into the world and you be loving and kind. It's kind of like you're filling up your gas tank. And then you go out in the world and you're loving and kind with the people around you. So this meditation is really helpful to do in the morning, because you can kind of fill up your mind with loving kindness, and then you can go out in your day, whether it's your personal life or your professional life, and you can be loving and kind in all the relationships around you. When you're cultivating this loving kindness in your mind, like I mentioned, it might be people that are long in your past that you're never going to see again. It doesn't mean that because you're being loving and kind now in your mind that you need to go rekindle that relationship. It doesn't always make sense to go backwards in a relationship, especially if it's a personal relationship. If it's a professional relationship and these things can affect your ability to sustain your life, it might make sense after you have more loving kindness in your mind to go back and kind of clear that up. But oftentimes in a personal relationship, maybe you're in a better place, but this individual is not. And now when you go back and you try to resolve that, then you have more complications. So oftentimes it's better to just continue to move forward in your day-to-day life, but you've gotten rid of any anger, hatred, and ill will within your own mind. So after we do these affirmations, we're going to go back to breathing mindfulness meditation, and then we're going to go back to the chanting. So the way that I think about it is it's like a loving kindness sandwich. In the middle, you've got loving kindness. The lettuce and tomato, that's like the breathing mindfulness meditation on each side of the loving kindness. And then the bread, holding it all together, this is the chanting. Okay, so this is the process. We're going to do this each morning so you guys get a chance to practice the loving kindness meditation. But I'm going to be using general statements that apply to all of us. You guys are going to need to customize this for a period of time as you're doing this on your own, where you have certain people in your meditation, maybe a week or 2 or 3, or like in the case of my mom, she was in my meditation for a good 6 months before I gradually wore away all that anger, resentment, and hostility that had been built up. The person who cut me off in traffic, maybe 2 or 3 days they were in my meditation, right? So maybe that employee that I was having challenges with, maybe a week or 2. Right? So you're going to have to see for yourself. That's where your mindfulness comes in. You need to be aware of what's going on within your own mind. So you guys have any questions on this? Anything you'd like to ask? Remember, those of you guys online, you can ask questions too by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. No questions? Okay. So we're going to do this together. I'm going to guide you guys in this session. If you guys would like to take a position, either seated, lying, or standing, these are the 3 ways that we do loving kindness meditation. I'm going to start with the chanting. I'm going to come in with the guidance for breathing mindfulness. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're meditating. Then I'm going to come in with the affirmations for loving kindness meditation. We're going to go back to breathing mindfulness and then back to the chanting. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสตาตาวามนุสนังโหโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect. Close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind focused on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with more guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There is nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Repeat these affirmations in the mind on the out breath. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May mom and dad be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May my family, friends, neighbors, and co-workers all be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who have harmed me be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May all beings, wherever they reside, be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanhang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. So this is loving kindness meditation. This is going to transform your mind away from anger, hatred, ill will, all those lesser versions, frustration, agitation, annoyance. This is what's going to do it for you. This, and then practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life. So you're going to need to be doing this regularly. And remember, you're going to need to customize this meditation for your specific needs. If you remember from the Four Noble Truths, I explained how it's your mind that is causing the discontent feelings, that craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. So in this meditation, when I'm saying, may all those who have caused me harm be peaceful, I'm not talking about the people who have caused you to be angry, because no one's causing you to be angry. No one's causing you to be frustrated. No one's causing you to feel annoyed or stressed or anxiety. What I'm talking about when I describe harm is that if someone's harmed your material possessions, the physical body, your reputation, things like this, that's, people can harm that, but they can't cause you to be discontent. So if someone stole my car, they've caused me harm because I can't go to the store and acquire basic necessities to be able to sustain my life. I can't take my son to school. I can't do, maybe come here. I can't come here and help people to be able to learn the teachings of the Buddha. This person's caused me harm. But if I get angry or frustrated because someone stole my car, that's my mind craving for this car to be permanent. It's not the person who stole the car that's caused the mind to be discontent. Right? So this is when you're saying, may all those who have caused me harm, it's anyone who's caused harm to your physical body, to your material possessions, or your reputation. And then the same thing when you say, may all those who I have harmed, it's the same thing. The people that you have harmed, their material possessions, their physical body, or their reputation. That's what you're training your mind to have nothing but loving kindness for these beings. Because in the past, you had ill will towards them when you damaged their material possessions or their physical body or their reputation. But now you're rewiring your mind to be loving and kind towards these beings. So that now, if you happen to be around these individuals at some point, you can be loving and kind to those individuals. But you may not ever see them ever again, and that's fine too. But you would like to uproot this anger, hatred, and ill will out of the mind. So do you guys have any questions on loving kindness meditation? Anything you'd like to ask about? All right. right, Adrian has a question.
So these specific affirmations, are they, like you say, we can do 6 to 8 rings? Can we add, say, for example, the 3 wholesome roots or the Brahma-Viharas into the affirmations?
If you're going to change these affirmations about peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness, you would need to do it in a way where whatever that word is that you use, that is what we call a non-burdening word. Like you're not interested in doing, may mom be kind, because this is like, I can only be loving with mom if she's kind first, or may mom be respectful. This is like requiring mom to do something before you are loving and kind with them, right? So what you're doing here is you're not trying to change mom through your meditation, because that's impossible. You can't do that. But what you're doing is you're trying to relate in your mind that you have no interest other than to see mom be peaceful, to be safe, to be well and free of discontentedness. You don't want to burden her with anything, whether she's kind or respectful or polite, it doesn't matter. You just would like to see her be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. So you can change that, but you would like to do it in a way that what we refer to as non-burdening, where you're not burdening this person with having to do something before you actually choose to be loving and kind. So you would like to get rid of all of that. So I suggest you stick with these, because this, I know, works 100%. But if you would like to change it, there is the ability to do that.
Yeah, I can see how some of the statements that I was thinking of adding in now could be along those lines of being burdening or placing an expectation there. Thanks for confirming that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little break for you guys. It's 10 minutes after 10. Let's take a break up to 10:30. And then when we come back, I'm going to teach you guys how to identify your cravings and how to go in and almost surgically remove them. So take a 20-minute break and then come back and we'll chat at that point. Okay, so thank you guys for your questions, and we'll see you guys after break.